Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, alcoholics of all ages, welcome to Canadian Sober, eh? I'm your host and resident alcoholic, Dougie Fresh. So glad you've joined us today. Please welcome Steve. Steve, how you doing today, brother?
Doug, I am doing fantastic. My name's Steve. I am an alcoholic, and it is always a pleasure to be asked to do anything at all, but even a bigger pleasure to try to spread a little of my experience, strength, and hope. Maybe someone listening could get something out of it. Like you were saying, you popped in, on the online meeting, and we instantly hit it off, I believe, exchanging phone numbers. And that's kind of my experience with when I attend meetings. I've been to so many meetings over my sobriety, and it seems every time I jump in a meeting, I'm getting a number. I'm becoming friends with someone, and I wouldn't trade that for the world. I've met so many amazing people through my journey. It's really a blessing. One good thing is, and I'm glad you reached out to me, because on March 4th, I celebrated 7 years of sobriety. And, you send this out, and I was like, wow, what timing, and I have this saying, is it odd or is it God, and I believe it's God, or my higher power. They put us together, and then this happened. And, drinking for me was everything for a long, long time. It was fun at one point. If it wasn't fun, I wouldn't have done it for so long. But that fun, that happiness that drinking gives to normal people disappeared very quickly for me. I thought that the way I drank was normal. I would always enjoy drinking a beer in the morning. I do construction, so there was always morning beers, afternoon beers, liquid lunches, and of course, after a hard day of work, got to have a beer when you get home, right? I never understood why I drank so much. I started getting things like from my girlfriend at the time, my wife right now, like, Steve, why do you drink so much? Maybe have one or two if we go out, let me drink tonight. And I would always say, sure, you could drink, I only have one or two. And I would magically wake up in my bedroom, not knowing how I got there. And I was a blackout drinker, which means that when I started to drink, first of all, I couldn't stop. Second of all, I would drink so fast, I would black out. And once I black out, who knows what Steve was going to do, what I was going to do. I could be a happy guy. I could be, an angry person. I was the person that would, be your best friend at 8 o'clock at night. By 10 o'clock, I want to fight you because you bumped into me. That's just how I was. And I'm not a fighter. I get along with so many people, but alcohol made me do stuff that I never thought I did. So I went through my whole life drinking, and then the consequences started. The wife started, questioning my drinking. She asked me to stop, and I promised and promised, and I promised this person, promised that person. I promised therapist after therapist. It's not my drinking. I got money issues. You drink too if you had my problems. And it was all, I would just say stuff, lie to these people, swear in their face just to get them off my back. I'm going out to a therapist paying hundreds of dollars and just lying, and then coming home and saying, oh, that was great, I feel amazing. And then wait for my wife to go to bed, back in my truck in my driveway, thinking, wow, isn't this life? This is amazing. And meanwhile, it's 11:30 at night. I'm by myself. I'm happy. Next thing I know, I'm crying at how the world's out to attack me. Nothing's fair. Everything's just a complete mess. Mm-hmm. So this went on for 5 years before I got sober, and I would rip my wife's heart out every time she caught me drinking. My wife would disappear for a day. Not disappear, she would leave to get away from me. 2 weeks down in South Carolina with her parents, and I thought it was great. I didn't do anything. I called up a neurotherapist, or I said I went this, I did that. Man, I was just at the house drinking because I couldn't stop. Uh, but when it all came crashing down, my wife had a small part-time job, and at this point in my drinking, I was around the clock drinking. I could drink a full bottle, I would pass out, and my body would wake me up, and the first thought in my head was to drink some more. Um, my son was about 2.5 years old. My daughter was about 6 months old, and all I had to do was stay sober for a little bit. And to this day, I don't know how I got alcohol, but I know that morning I didn't have anything in the house. So I don't know if I left my kids at the house to run out, if I asked a neighbor to get me something. Uh, but I came to on my living room floor with my 2.5 year old son next to me crying, my wife screaming at me, and I had no clue where my 6 month old daughter was. Thank God that I put her in the crib at some point and she was safe. But I, I I I never thought I would get that intoxicated in front of my kids. I mean, I'm talking like 3 hours. I needed to be there, and I couldn't even do that. So at that point, I got kicked out of the house, and I look back at it, and I wasn't even upset. I was like, "This is it. Good. I'm glad I don't have to deal because my wife, my kids were my problem. Everything was my problem, and now it was free." Um, I went to work that day, and I said to myself, I said, Steve, you got to stop drinking. Maybe drinking's your problem. And I showed up at a house, and they had a bar, a beautiful bar that the guy was so proud to show off to me. And by 9 o'clock, I was drinking again. You know, um, I went a week long tear. I ended up at a casino because my great thinking thought if I win a whole bunch of money and show up at my house, my wife would take me back. And that wasn't the case. And it's funny because out of all the casinos around me, my mom and dad are walking up the steps as I'm walking out to go outside for a cigarette. And I said, what's the luck that my parents are at the same casino as me, but meanwhile, they're there to rescue me, take me away. And I end up going back by mommy and daddy's house. And the next morning, when my higher power stepped in, I was ready to go to work. I couldn't care about that I was by mommy and daddy's house or that I got kicked out of my house. And I was ready to go to work. I just start like, all right, let's start fresh again. And I ended up driving to a deli, and in my head, all I could think about was getting a drink. And I went up to the counter. I'm talking like this, like 6:30 in the morning, and I got a buttered roll and a cup of coffee, and I was like, "Yeah, let me get a pint of Zambuca." And the guy's like, "It's 6:30 in the morning." You're like, "No," and I'm like, "I'll give you $50 for it," and he's like, "No, get out of my store." Uh, and that's when I turned around. I ended up going back home to my parents' house, and I said, "Ma, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. I'm done. I need help." So I made some phone calls. My sister, she helped me out. I ended up having to go to an emergency room because I was so intoxicated before I got to detox. And in the detox, sitting there the next morning, I was miserable. I mean, everything was just crashing down. I mean, my world ended. How did I let this happen? I had a house, wife, kids, dog, I had everything I thought I wanted, and I'm sitting in a detox miserable. Um, and they bring meetings into the detox, and I went through the day, and I started to hear stuff that I never heard before. I started to hear like people were happy, or I felt they were happy. The way they talked, I saw that they were happy. And one guy actually was in a cover band, and part of his story was that he was going to a bar like 3 times a week, and he didn't drink, and I didn't believe him at all. Right, I didn't believe him at all. I was like, "There's no way you're going to a bar and not drinking." And I talked to him after he shared, and he gave me the hope. The hope that people talk about, like just by that 5 minute conversation, I was like, man, if he could do it, I think I could do it. So I got out of detox, and instantly I wanted to go back to my house, and there's no way that was happening. So I did the next best thing, which was suggested by everyone that came, was to go to a meeting, raise my hand and ask for help. And that's what I did for about 4 days straight. Uh, my life was still horrible. Like I was like, how come I'm not getting better? Like I've done the detox, I've done, the meetings, like, and I'm just miserable. Can't sleep. I don't want to eat. And my wife allowed me back up to the house to see my kids. And I remember coming in and my wife just pissed off still. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. I did all these things. Like I haven't had a beer in like 4 days, like where's my party? Like this should be the greatest thing in the world. And she's like, no, you're out of here. You're done. I don't want you here at all. And I don't know why I did not drink that night. Like the only thing I think of is my higher power, but I made a plan in my head that the next morning I was going to go to an early morning meeting and drink after that. So I ended up going to that meeting. Yeah, a guy came up to me, like greeted me, and I was like, listen, buddy, I'm just here for the coffee, maybe a piece of cake or cookies, and I'm drinking after this. And the guy's like, yeah, sure, no problem. Come on in. And I was like, all right, I don't have to talk to anyone. This is great. After that meeting ended, he came up to me and he started asking me about my tattoos. Like, Steve, why are you doing this to your body? What's this mean? Blah, blah, blah. You shouldn't do that to your body and all this stuff. And I'm going back and forth with this guy. And little did I know, about, I don't know, an hour and a half passed by, and he's like, hey, Steven. I said, what's going on? He's like, you didn't do what you said you were going to do. And I go, what do you mean? He's like, well, you told me you were going to drink. It's like an hour and a half. And I'm like, huh, you're right. He goes, well, we go to a 12 o'clock meeting. You want to tag along? I said, yeah, no problem. So I owe that guy knowing what to say to me to keep me in the room. And he did what was probably done to him. And I'm so blessed that I went to that meeting, because he ended up becoming my first person to guide me through the steps. And we only made it to about step 3 before, about 4 months into my sobriety, my wife allowed me back in the house, as a person to help with the house, not a husband, not a father. And I got a new home group up here, and that's when the magic started to happen to me. Well, first of all, I started to like hit different meetings around here, because I was told, like, you got to become accountable, you got to make friends wherever you're at, you got to stay in the herd, all the sayings that people were throwing at me, and which I did, and but I wasn't doing what I really need to do. And that's, join a home group, get to know people, let people know me. And there was a couple of times that obsession of the drink started coming back, and it scared the crap out of me, because I didn't want to drink anymore. But the thought of that after work beer was sneaking in, oh, you're doing so good. You've been sober for 4 months. You could have one. So I asked another guy to sponsor me, and it was no joke. He was like, we're going through this. This is the time you need to go through this. You're hurting. You could either go through it. If it doesn't work, good, do what you need to do, or give it a chance, and it could change your life. And I had to trust what I heard at meetings. I had to trust what I, was reading on the internet, that some, people can not drink, or they don't need to do drugs to be happy. And I started to trust people, and I went through the steps, and that's when I really didn't see it, but I started to notice the way people around me were acting, especially my wife. Our conversations got a little bit longer. She allowed me, to hang out with the kids by myself. She, one day, and I will never forget this, we were walking and she grabbed my hand, and I was like, oh my God, this is something's working here, and there's a lot of things that I was suggested to do that never made sense to me. And, but I did them, I didn't question them. Uh, and the whole trust thing is my sponsor says, whatever I ask you to do is something I'm doing or I have done. So that made it a lot easier for me to say, all right, if he did it, I could do it too, and with me, one of I think the first gifts I got back of sobriety was the ability to listen. And good thing, because I needed to listen, whatever I was trying to do to stop drinking never worked, or I never let it work. When I listened to other people that were sober, and I did some of the things that they were doing, I was able to stay sober. The thought of a drink disappeared. My days started to get better, and going through the work, I realized that a lot of my issues I was having, was because of me. The way I acted with other people, the way I held onto resentments or grudges, the way I thought the world owed me something. I had to change my whole thought process, and which I did. I do stuff today that I never thought I ever do, and one of them is praying. I never prayed. I would go to church. If I did, I couldn't even tell you when I stopped going to church. But I never prayed. I would mouth the words, just to, so my mom wouldn't say anything to me. But now I pray. There was a lot of things that I had to find that works for me. And, I was told that I need to work on my meditation and praying. And, I have a busy household. I got a wife, I got 2 kids, I got a dog, I got a cat. So throughout the day, I'm kind of trying to find these places to meditate, and I could never do it. And then one day, son pops in my head and goes, Steve, maybe you should get up a little bit earlier. And I said, oh no. So every day, Doug, I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. And even on vacations, my birthday, if I'm down in South Carolina, hanging out with my in-laws, I'm up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm meditating and I'm doing some readings. And there's a couple of times my wife's like, you really have to do that? And I'm like, yeah, I do. It makes me a better person. It makes me a better husband. It makes me a better father, these little things. And I love it now. I mean, the weather's starting to change in New Jersey. The birds are starting to come out. So at 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm starting to hear these sounds and smell the spring coming in. And I'm amazed. I'm even talking. I'm smelling spring. I never cared about spring, spring to me was go chug at a baseball game. That was spring to me. But it's just, there's so much I've gotten out of being sober. It's unbelievable. And one of the greatest things is just the ability to wake up, just to wake up in the morning and not have that thought of, please God, is there some alcohol left in my truck? Please God, is there alcohol somewhere hidden in this house? I love it. I love it so much. And my days aren't all roses, and I still upset my wife. I still yell at my kids, but I see these things. And what's amazing is I'm able to say, okay, why did I yell? I'm looking for why I yelled at my kids, or what did I do to my wife to make her upset with me? In my relationship with everyone in my family and a couple of my friends have just gotten stronger over the years. Like I said before, most of the people I speak to now are sober individuals. And every day I speak to, my sponsees, I speak to my sponsor, and we're all friends. And it's a bond I hope never breaks. My life is amazing. Today I believe I'm a better husband. My kids love me to death. My daughter's like my little princess. You know, when daddy's around, I could do no wrong, and I hope I do no wrong. My kids were young enough where they've never saw me, or they don't remember me being intoxicated. And you know, if I continue to do what I do daily to treat my alcoholism, I believe that they will never have to see me intoxicated. And that's one of my goals. Like I was saying, I could grab my phone right now and look through the index of all the names, and anyone I could call up and just talk to them. And we'll get on a level where they understand me, I understand them. I'm lucky enough, I work with another alcoholic. And in our conversation in the morning is fun. It's everything about being sober. He helps me, I help him, and we get to go home and enjoy life. I've seen so many amazing things. My one sponsee, when he asked me to help him, his in-laws hated him. 2 years later, he's on the dance floor at his wedding with his father-in-law, and they're hugging and they're giving Italian kisses all over the place. What a beautiful thing. I'm crying. My wife's looking at me like, why are you crying? I'm like, you don't understand, you know? But that's what I'm able to witness now. And it's truly a blessing. Meeting people like you that do so much. Like, it blows me away on how much you put into helping other people that you don't even know. And, you know, you're an influence for me. I try to do my best. I'm always available to help. I'm available for anyone at all times of the day and at night. And my wife knows it too. But thank you for inviting me on this show. I'll give it back to you, Doug.
Thanks so much, Steve. You know, like I respect you a ton. I love you like a brother. I think you and I hit it off instantly for a couple reasons. Your birthday was March 4th. My birthday is March 14th. So
Yeah.
coming up, I'll be 8 years clean and sober, you know, and so we share the same month. But, I heard a saying a little while ago, and it really made me think about where I was and where I am now. And this guy said it in a speaker meeting. He said, I was a millionaire and didn't know I was rich, you know? And I think, like, you know, when you were telling your story just now, the things that you had in your life, you know, the things we do when we're in that madness, the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, you know, like that madness, and we don't realize what we're giving up. We don't realize what we're risking, right, of losing. And I think the one thing that you said in your share that really touched my heart was when you said you were walking and your wife reached out for your hand, you know, and I'm just like, I'm sitting here thinking, like, that's a big moment, right? Like, a moment like that is huge, you know, and it lets you know that, hey, whatever's going on here, this is the right path that I'm on, right? And I think you shared very honestly and candidly about, some of the struggles that you were going through, and you said one thing that I wrote down here, and you said you were ripping your wife's heart out. My wife shared on social media today that it was 24 years ago today. Was today, March 7th?
Yes.
It was 24 years ago today on March 7th that my wife met me in the Dominican Republic. I met my wife in the Dominican Republic. She was vacationing with her family. I was with a friend of mine, and I howled at her like she was like a cat. And and then 24 years later, here we are, right? And I put that woman through hell. I ripped her heart out, and there is, I have no idea. It's my higher power, kept telling that woman that things are going to get better. Things are going to get better, and I really understand and agree with what you said. You said, life isn't perfect today. My wife and I still bicker and argue. We nitpick each other's driving skills, and we go through life, and that's how it is today. But I have a program around me today that just like you, that tells me when I'm wrong, and when I need to apologize. And and I think that's really saved my marriage, saved my life in a sense. One thing I'd like to ask you, and you can talk a little bit about it, is why do you think it's important today for Steve to recover out loud?
It's a very good question. When I drank, I didn't care who saw me drink. This was what you got. You got me drinking the way I wanted to drink. The way I do my recovery is really up to me. And I don't know if when I was drinking, if I allowed myself to see people that were sober or, whatever it may be. But I'm very proud of my sobriety. I'm not ashamed to say, hey, yeah, once alcohol controlled me and I'm different today. Everyone in my family knows, my work knows. I allow my family or friends that have someone that's struggling reach out to me. Like I said, I was given something that for me to keep, I need to give away. And I have no problem. And maybe I could be an example, like maybe like I said about that guy at Detox, like if he could do it, I could do it. Maybe somewhere someone looks at me and says, wow, that nutcase, if he could stay sober, maybe I could, let me talk to him. So I'm not embarrassed about saying I had a drinking problem or alcohol problem, or I suffer from alcoholism, whatever it may be. I want to be an example that there's a solution out there, no matter how it is. I'm a walking miracle where I don't need alcohol as my solution. I have other things that help me get through the day. And that's pretty much it.
Hey, I appreciate you coming today and sharing what you shared with us. Hopefully we can do this again pretty soon. And I wish you nothing but the best of success going forward, and keep sobriety alive, my friend.